War and Peace was written by Leo Tolstoy, a famous Russian author known for his deep stories about life, love, and history. The book came out in the 1860s, a time when Russia was changing a lot, and it's set during the early 1800s, when Napoleon's army invaded Russia. Tolstoy didn't just want to write a simple story. He wanted to show how big events, like wars, affect regular people and how they live their lives. War and Peace is one of the longest and most famous books ever written, and many people say it's one of the best. It mixes real history with made-up characters, following their lives through times of war and times of peace, showing how they grow, love, suffer, and find meaning. The story follows several families, but the main ones are the Bezukhovs, the Bolkonskys, and the Rostovs. These families are part of Russia's high society, which means they are rich and important, but they still have problems like everyone else. The book starts in 1805, when Russia is getting ready for war with France, led by Napoleon. At a party in St. Petersburg, we meet Pierre Bezukhov, a young man who feels lost and doesn't know what to do with his life. He's kind but awkward, and he doesn't fit in with the fancy people around him. Pierre's father, a wealthy count, is very sick, and when he dies, Pierre suddenly becomes rich and important, which changes his life in ways he didn't expect. Another main character is Prince Andrei Bolkonsky, a serious man who is tired of his boring life and his shallow wife. He decides to join the army to find a greater purpose, hoping that fighting in the war will make him feel alive. Andrei is brave but also a bit cold, and he struggles to connect with people, even his own family. His sister, Marya, is quiet and religious, living a simple life while taking care of their strict father, who is a retired general. Then there's Natasha Rostova, a young girl from a loving family. She's full of life, always singing and dancing, and she dreams of love and happiness. Her family, the Rostovs, are kind but not very good with money, so they often have financial problems. Natasha's brother, Nikolai, joins the army too, excited to fight for his country, but he soon learns that war is not as glorious as he thought. As the story goes on, these characters' lives mix together in different ways. Pierre, who is now wealthy, marries a beautiful but selfish woman named Helene, but their marriage is unhappy because she doesn't really love him. Pierre feels trapped and starts searching for a deeper meaning in life. He even joins a group called the Freemasons, who talk about making the world better, but he still feels empty inside. Meanwhile, Andrei goes to war and fights in big battles, like the Battle of Austerlitz, where Russia and its allies lose to Napoleon. Andrei gets badly hurt and almost dies, which makes him think differently about life. He realizes that fame and glory aren't as important as he thought, and he starts to value simple things like family and love. When he comes home, his wife dies giving birth to their son, which leaves him feeling guilty and sad. Natasha, who is growing up, meets Andrei at a ball and they fall in love. They plan to get married, but Andrei's father doesn't approve and makes them wait a year. While Andrei is away, Natasha meets Anatole, a charming but bad man who tricks her into thinking he loves her. She almost runs away with him, but Pierre stops her just in time. When Andrei finds out, he's heartbroken and refuses to forgive Natasha, even though she's very sorry. The war gets worse, and in 1812, Napoleon invades Russia with a huge army. The Russian army tries to stop him, but they have to keep retreating. During this time, Pierre decides to stay in Moscow, even though the city is in danger. He has a crazy idea to kill Napoleon himself, thinking it will change history. But when the French army takes Moscow, Pierre is captured and becomes a prisoner. While in prison, he meets a simple soldier named Platon Karataev, who teaches him to appreciate life's small joys and to accept things as they are. This changes Pierre's way of thinking, and he starts to find peace inside himself. Andrei also fights in the war again, and he gets badly wounded in the Battle of Borodino. He ends up in a hospital where he sees Anatole, the man who hurt Natasha, also wounded. Instead of hating him, Andrei feels pity and forgives him, realizing that holding on to anger is useless. Later, when Andrei is dying, Natasha comes to take care of him. They forgive each other, and Andrei dies peacefully, knowing that love is what matters most. Natasha's family, the Rostovs, have to leave their home because of the war. They pack their things and help wounded soldiers, showing their kindness. Natasha's younger brother Petya joins the army too, but he dies in battle, which breaks his family's hearts. After the war, the Rostovs are poor, but they still have each other. The story doesn't end with the war, though. In the epilogue, which is like an extra part at the end, we see what happens to the characters years later. Pierre and Natasha get married and have children, finding happiness together. Nikolai, Natasha's brother, marries Marya, Andrei's sister, and they work hard to rebuild their lives. The book shows that even after all the pain and loss, life goes on, and people can find joy again. But War and Peace isn't just about the characters' lives. Tolstoy also writes about history and how it works. He says that big events like wars aren't just caused by one person like Napoleon, but by many small things and many people working together. He thinks that history is like a big machine, and no one can control it alone. This idea was new at the time, and it made people think differently about how the world works. The book is very long because Tolstoy wanted to show everything in detail: the battles, the parties, the quiet moments at home. He describes the characters' thoughts and feelings so well that you feel like you know them. For example, when Pierre is confused about his life, you can almost feel his struggle. When Natasha is happy, you smile with her, and when she's sad, you feel her pain. Tolstoy also shows how people change over time, like how Pierre grows from a lost young man into a wise and content husband. One of the most famous parts of the book is when Pierre is a prisoner and learns from Platon Karataev. Platon is a simple man who doesn't have much, but he's happy because he accepts life as it is. He teaches Pierre that true happiness comes from inside, not from money or power. This lesson stays with Pierre for the rest of his life. Another important moment is when Andrei is lying wounded on the battlefield and looks up at the sky. He realizes how small he is compared to the universe, and this makes him feel peaceful, even in the middle of war. Tolstoy uses this to show that sometimes in the worst moments, people can find a kind of calm. War and Peace shows how people's lives are connected to history. It makes you think about how big events, like wars, affect everyone, not just soldiers. It also asks big questions, like what is the meaning of life, and how should we live? Tolstoy doesn't give easy answers, but he makes you think about these things through the characters' stories. People like the book because it feels real. The characters make mistakes, learn, and grow, just like we do. It's a long book, but it's worth it because it stays with you, making you think about your own life and the world around you.